TK's pile of Christmas garbage, or as some more charitable folk might say, his donation towards this project, included 3 Thomas Kincaid boxcars. As you can see here, I've already repainted one of them to experiment on it off camera and to figure out what I wanted to do with these cars, but I thought I would save the other 2 for a video, and, well, on this video, I'd like to do an experiment on camera. Let's not waste any time and get right into it, shall we? In my first video, including an item from TK's pile, I stripped the tacky painting decals off the side of a car using Solvaset. I got a kind comment on that video suggesting that I try 91% isopropyl alcohol instead. It sounded promising, so I thought I'd give it a try, but I wanted to compare the results of both the isopropyl alcohol and my older Solvaset method side by side to figure out which was better. These boxcars seemed like the perfect testing grounds for this. They're identical cars, and I figured I'd paint them in the same color so the end result would look similar, but we would notice any differences, any blemishes that one might leave behind that the other wouldn't. I quickly got to work disassembling the first car. Once it was in pieces, I poured some alcohol in a small container and left the car body on its side in the alcohol to soak for a few hours. For the second car, I instead got to work with the Solvaset, giving it a light coating.
You know, the one downside of doing all this stuff smells horrible. And so does the isopropyl alcohol. So I'm down here just sort of having to deal with the smells. Ugh. 2 of the worst ones all at the same time.
After that coating had soaked in for a few minutes, I stripped away both sides by scrubbing them with a stiff paintbrush, doing my best to wipe away the residue with a paper towel. This immediately shows some of the biggest strengths and weaknesses of Solvaset. It is a super fast method, but as you can see here, not all of the detail got stripped away. There's still a little gold outline. For the car in the alcohol, I waited around 5 hours before removing it. Once I did, I just used the same stiff brush as before to peel off the paint. As you can see, this technique is more thorough, getting through what the Solvaset couldn't. It is way slower though, and I had only stripped one side and had to put the other one back into the alcohol to soak for another 5 hours. After I recorded this though, I did do some further experimenting and found that you could wait around like 1 to 2 hours instead of 5. But if you walk away from the project while it soaks, you could easily forget to do it in such a quick time frame. Or, well, relatively quick time frame for this specific method. With both of the cars stripped, we spray painted them in a dull brown off camera. I think at this point the results are in. Can you tell which one is which? If you said that the interior of the one in the foreground was red, and the old Solvaset car was red, therefore the one in the foreground is the Solvaset car, you're a cheater, but you're also correct. From this angle, though, it's near impossible to see the texture the old paint had left behind. When the light shines just right, you can make it out if you know what to look for. Between these 2 techniques, I think both have their place, honestly. In my experience, Solvaset is obviously way faster, but it also uses less liquid material to strip the car, and the texture from the leftover paint is quite hard to see. However, I do think this method works better in small doses, in spots that you plan to add visual texture or contrast to after stripping the region. For example, if you wanted to strip the lettering off of a tender, then paint it over with a base color to cover up the residue, and add your own lettering after all that, you'd never notice the issue. I've done it already on 2 engines. They're not out yet on YouTube, but I have done them. However, for broader areas without much visual contrast, such as these boxcars, the end result can still pop out on occasion. It may be hard to notice if you don't know the flaw is there, but it's a little annoying when the lighting is just right and you do manage to spot it. If you have the patience, the alcohol leaves a better, long-lasting result, and it's not much more expensive despite the fact that you do need to use more alcohol per car. I think both options have their uses, honestly, and I expect to use both of them moving forwards for certain scenarios. Anyways, if you're paying attention to the background footage, you might have noticed that I'm repainting the cars a bit here. I personally didn't like how bland the brown was that we spray painted on them, so I decided to give both cars a coat of their own distinct color. Once that was done, I reassembled them both, then added some decals. I don't really have too much to say this time around outside of the experiment results because, well, I've kind of shown all these steps in different videos, maybe on different cars, but I've shown this sort of idea before, so I'm kind of just speed running to the end of this. But hey, 2 more boxcars for the fleet. We now have a tanker, a stake flat, a gondola, 3 boxcars, and a combination baggage coach. Well, okay, that's what we have that I've shown you here on YouTube. There is more in the works that I've been sharing with Ko-Fi supporters. Become one if you want to see some of this stuff early and maybe give suggestions for the future of this project. If you don't want to do that, that's alright. I'll still see you all next week for another part of this model railroad. Cheers, folks.